Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats. Today is our special Halloween edition of IC Topic Chats. We're going to talk about client horror stories. Woo! It is October 27th, and gosh, we've been doing this for about quite a few years, 2.5 years now. Can you believe it? But we meet every Thursday at noon Eastern, or where I am in the Central Time Zone at 11 a.m. And you can interpret that for whatever time zone you happen to be in. Today, I'm going to be talking about 3 of my horror stories. I'm going to be giving some ideas. I'm going to give 5.5 tips on how to avoid being spooked with your clients. And then we're going to stop the recording, and we'll have a chat, which is what we do each week. But this week we have a couple of people who agreed to join in and share some of their stories, and may either ask for advice if they haven't figured out how to resolve their nightmare, or if they have figured it out, maybe they could provide us with some ideas for how we could avoid their situation, how they resolved it, and what their lessons learned were. So let's get started. My first slide today is the case of the decapitated principal investigator. Ooh. So the decapitated principal investigator story. And I think a lot of us find this where a project gets written up. For me, I do a lot of support for program evaluation proposals. I do proposals. And so the big activity is written, and there's usually so much energy, and there's wonderful vibes with all the people in the room, and we write this fantastic proposal. And then, of course, you know how this goes. It gets submitted, and it goes through the review process, and that oftentimes takes 3, 6, perhaps longer than 6 months. And then you get the news. You know, the way I like to tell people, about 2 weeks after you forgot you wrote the proposal, you find out whether it was funded, and it gets funded, and there's all this excitement. But then you realize the people who wrote the proposal have left, and where the principal investigator has effectively been decapitated, meaning they're no longer present. And so it's been handed down to kind of like a zombie principal investigator, somebody who never anticipated having this opportunity to do it, and frankly probably doesn't want to be involved with it. So like I had the situation, I have a couple of situations like that currently, but not too long ago, we had this with an institution. It was for a scholarship program, and all the people who were involved with writing the grant left, and the folks who did it were just kind of going through the motions. And I had to continue writing these really kind of severe evaluation reports about how they weren't doing their job. At the end of the day, I wrote 2 kind of, very critical evaluation reports, and they ended up firing me. And I was actually relieved. It was the most relief I've ever felt in such a situation. It's one of the nice things about being an independent consultant, because we can have several projects. If you're doing this right, you don't just have one big project and all your eggs are in the same basket. But in this situation, it was a smaller contract. It was causing me all kinds of grief, and I was relieved. What I would have done differently is I probably would have fired them. And I have a couple situations where I've thought about this recently with other clients, but that one was a particularly frustrating one because they were just never going to live up to the expectations of what was originally written in the grant. And then the next one, the case of the superstitious seance program meetings. Ooh. So I think I know we've got this situation. I'm just having this conversation about this situation yesterday. This is the situation where people don't want to talk to their program evaluators. They want to meet in private. And so during the pandemic, and the pandemic is still going on, of course, but in the pandemic, when everybody had to work from home, the stay-at-home orders, everybody learned how to use Zoom. And that was fantastic because we were invited to all the meetings. So quite frankly, I think that was a wonderful thing for all of our clients because we had the opportunity to join them. But now that they've gone back to in-person meetings for the most part, they don't frequently invite us. And then oftentimes we feel like they're actually being protective around their time. And so with these protective seance meetings, I think that they're afraid to let us in because of something that might be going wrong. And what ends up happening is things may actually be going wrong, but they're afraid to tell us because they don't want us to write some scathing program evaluation report. But as a result, they continue down a bad path. So this is why what we do, to the degree we can, is we encourage them to invite us to their meetings. We encourage them to recognize that we're partners in the program, and that really, if we have experience with all types of projects. Right now, we have a staff of 11 folks, and we have 45 funded projects. We have a lot of experiences doing a lot of different things, and we've seen mistakes made, we've seen problems, we see things happening before they occur. We see things kind of heading in the wrong direction. And if you're partnering with program evaluator in the way you ought to, the program evaluator can help steer the ship a little bit and serve as, I like to call it from a baseball reference, bench coach, who help kind of whisper in the program director's ear or the principal investigator's ear things that should be directed in a different way. But this doesn't always happen. I know I had a conversation about 2 separate clients who are doing this with us yesterday, and we can actually, I think it's 3 different clients who are doing this yesterday, and they just are afraid to let us in on their meetings. And of course, because it's a little more complicated because now they're in person. But anyway, that's one of our situations. And then finally, and this is one I know we've all seen, the case of the fiscal phantom. The fiscal phantom is a situation where you have this wonderful relationship with your client, and there's lots of communication, lots of back and forth, and then you send them the invoice and they ghost you. In fact, there's a lot of ghosting, I think, that happens in our horror stories. And in this situation, we had a client, very low budget, actually, very small budget. I've spent more time in accounts receivable than we actually spent on the program evaluation, which is very frustrating. We sent 2 invoices in July for a grand total of $2,250 for work that happened between April and June. And then we sent another 2 invoices for a total of $2,250. So grand total of $4,500 again. And for the next period of performance in October, we received payment yesterday, but I've spent twice as much time just following up with them and connecting with their accountant. Certainly this client has got their own series of issues with a lot of different things going on, but it's not my problem. We're doing our work. And so there's a lot of frustration on our end. And with this one, we're actually going to have a meeting next week to determine what we want to do. But one of the options is to, in fact, fire the client, because we're spending more time in accounts receivable than actually doing the program evaluation work. And I think that's a problem. Little do they know that this is actually probably a bigger problem for them because they're recipient of some of our funds from another program, but I won't get into that today. So to resolve things, and before we go into the remainder of the session with our guest hosts, I'd like to give 5.5 pieces of advice to avoid getting spooked with your clients. So obviously, I think we all know this, we need to set our expectations ahead of time, verbally, and in contract through emails. They should understand what you're intending to do. If there are changes that occur, like with the example of the decapitated principal investigator, you immediately kind of connect with that new principal investigator. If there's not one immediately, you press whomever was the supervisor, that dean or vice provost or whomever it is that's running things, press them for who's going to be the principal investigator. To the degree that it's appropriate, you can connect with a program officer. You want to avoid looking like you're going around the program because that might cause bad blood. But I've been known to reach out to program officers and say, what am I supposed to do here? But set those expectations. You clearly want to document as things are going on, particularly if you think there's any reason that things could come back on you in a bad way. So if you're doing everything appropriately, you should be able to document that through setting your emails, print your emails, print them to like PDF and put them in program files and things like that. Clearly, you want to remain professional. I don't think I should have to tell you that, but You don't send off emails that are scathing and mean or frustrated. Just continue to follow up, clearly show up to the IC topic chats, go to your masterminds meetings, connect with those other people that you've met through the ICTIG, through your other professional associations like your local affiliates. Ask them for advice. If you know other evaluators who are working on similar programs or work with that client, connect with them and say, what would you do? How should I handle this? And so they might have some insights. They might understand those folks. They might know something that you don't know. I will say this, for the most part, everybody I work with, even though they're not following through, or they may sometimes become unprofessional, they're all, I mean, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. They're all good people trying to do good things. We find ourselves in these spooky situations, but frankly, they are just good people trying to do the right thing to the best of their ability. And, they're cutting corners, or they're ignoring something that's important, and they may not realize it, but, I give them the benefit of the doubt to the degree I can. We should always try and prepare for our spooky situations through putting things into our contract. You want to anticipate the terrible things that may happen. And that's why we always make sure there's out clauses in our contract. The typical thing is to say either the client or the contractor can cancel a contract within with a 30 days notice without any penalty. That's the way we built it into our contracts. So you want to make sure that that's there. Finally, 5.5. The half piece of advice is don't be afraid to fire your client. Like I said, with my situation, I kind of wish I had, they ended up not technically they didn't renew my contract, and I was like, that's fine, I don't care. But I kind of wish I had done it. So I had quit them before they quit me. So finally, here's our upcoming sessions. Next week, we're going to do a core topic on time tracking. If you're going to be at AEA on Thursday, November 10th, we're going to meet at noon for a brown bag. I think most of you have received or seen the link to sign up for that. But if you haven't, I'll post that in the chat when we're going through our conversation in a second. In a week after that, November 17th, we're going to do Meet the Pros. A lot of planning is still involved with this. It's going to be a 2-hour session. It'll go from Eastern time zone, noon to 2. If you're in my time zone, it's 11 to 1. So it's going to be rapid fire. Meet the Pros is probably the IC topic chat, or what I think the ICTIG event of the year, because we're going to have 8 different rooms going at the same time, where you can go to one, or you can try and go to as many rooms as you can over the time and learn something from each person. It's very rapid fire. You'll learn things in a very quick amount of time and receive some feedback. Core topic, key performance indicators, and then we'll have Corey Newhouse, and we'll wrap out the year with finally the 2022 successes. It'll be like today's, except maybe a little happier. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording, and we're going to get into chatting with some of our other colleagues who have some things to share. So thanks for coming today. Come back each Thursday. We'll see you then, or continue to watch us on YouTube. Thanks a lot.